Well, you just heard it in that song. Now it's my turn to be talking about love. Sue sings that with such gusto and meaning, just as we all can, when we are aware of and utilizing the healing power of love. So the theme this month is talking about love. And today's topic is the healing power of love. Every year since 1988, the Alliance for Global New Thought, AGNT, has been sponsoring the Season for Nonviolence. For 64 days each year, they offer a plethora of information, of activities, and events on behalf of peace. This year that began on January 30th and continues through April 4th. And in fact, we were actually online with them for the opening of the Season for Nonviolence presentation, which all of you got an email about prior to that actual occurrence. So during each of these months now, February, March, and the beginning of April, I'm going to be bringing to you thoughts and ideas on behalf of peace. Not that I don't do that during the rest of the year, I do. But it's just that this time, internationally, we add our support and our energies on behalf of millions of other people worldwide who work together toward this end. You may wonder why it's called nonviolence instead of pro-peace. You know, I've pondered that same question myself. And my best guess is that the word nonviolence at this stage of human evolution is probably more universally understood than the word pro-peace. At least it would seem so, from an observation of human events up until now. But that has been then, and this is now. Now, as spiritually guided citizens and leaders in over 1,000 cities in 67 different countries, there are spiritually guided citizens and leaders celebrating consciously with their attention on the philosophy of attaining peace through nonviolent actions. And that phrase, attaining peace through nonviolent action, carries a powerful message in and of itself. Because attaining peace through violent action is an oxymoron. And that's the message we must send. You can't fight for peace. You can only act on behalf of peace. You can only act in peace. So today I'm going to concentrate on two areas in the healing power of love. The first is how we address that in ourselves. The second is how we expand that to our community. And I will tell you now, ever so briefly, but we'll elaborate on this as the month goes on. Our Principles of Financial Freedom class is already on this. They're already talking about ways in which to expand our actions on behalf of peace into our communities. So as you hear this information unfolding this morning, you may begin to get some ideas too on how that can be done. So how we address that in ourselves, first of all. Finding our core, our spiritual self, the essence of our connection with life, has nothing to do with the externals in our lives. And we've talked about this before. It's an inside job to become peaceful, connected with life in its entirety, and happy. We must develop a practice which directs our awareness inward. Paul Ferrini suggests 4 ways that we can do that. The first one is to show up for your life. Most of us have learned to show up the way those around us expect us to, instead of showing up for ourselves. When those around us are wounded, emotionally or spiritually, we develop beliefs about unworthiness or not being good enough ourselves. We compromise ourselves to please others. That's giving away our power. Showing up for ourselves is not selfish. It's courageous to express our selfness, that original that we are, not the copy. The second thing he says is take responsibility. Learning to own our own experiences is different from guilt or blame. It means understanding the patterns or habits that we have developed before we knew better. Then we can take charge of changing them. It's not that we shouldn't make mistakes, but that we should use our mistakes as learning opportunities to grow and do better the next time. Number 3, he says, is you make you happy. It's up to each of us to be the bringer of love to our own experience. When we connect with the universal power of love, whatever you choose to call that, then we are able to bring love into our own experience rather than expecting or depending on someone else to do that for us. And his 4th suggestion is this: accept yourself right now. Love yourself right now. Be willing to forgive yourself right now. Because at the heart of acceptance is the willingness to love yourself, to accept yourself, to forgive yourself right now. When we're willing to begin this process, opportunities come up constantly to make such breakthroughs. It's called seeing your own innocence. I had never heard that phrase before I read this material. Seeing your own innocence. And see that what you did or you thought or you said before was out of fear, was out of shame, was out of ignorance. But that was then, and this is now. And practicing forgiveness is being forgiving. And it always starts right here, forgiving ourselves. And often, these 4 points from Paul Ferrini, who is an author, a workshop presenter, and a spiritual counselor, often these 4 ideas: show up for your life, take responsibility, make yourself happy, and accept yourself, are the kickstart that revs up the engine of purpose within you. And it renews your enthusiasm for life, for this marvelous journey we call life. Why not take the ride of your life on this great adventure? Now let's look at how we can take these skills into our communities on behalf of the healing power of love. Last week, a community workshop was held in San Mateo, California. San Mateo, as many of you know, is a bedroom community on the peninsula south of San Francisco. And this workshop was developed and presented by Len and Libby Traubman, who have lived and worked in San Mateo for almost 50 years. And I heard about this through AG&T as a follow-up to the opening presentation of the Season for Nonviolence. This was one of their follow-up bulletins, which came as news to them, just as it did to me. 115 people from the ages of 18 to 85, pretty nice spread of ages, attended this forum in San Mateo. And the forum was titled Crossing Lines, Sharing Stories, Building Community. From several races they came, many religions, diverse communities, that is, of living spaces within the greater San Mateo area. They dignified one another with respectful communication across all lines, beginning with their new quality of listening to one another and to everyone. Students, workers, shopkeepers, policemen, educators, clergy heard, understood, and learned that a stranger or an enemy is somebody whose story we simply have not heard. Lynn, who is a retired children's dentist, commented, "A lot of us are realizing that we're strangers, even in our own nation now." The entry point of that day and of creating our desired culture of connection really began with the person who has the will and the skill to be the first one to listen. His wife, Libby, who is a professional social worker, added that their travels to other communities and countries caused them to realize how profoundly having conversations with local people that they met along the way changed their perspectives. Do you hear this message? This is a one-to-one connection between people, not from the outside in, but from the inside out. She said, "We realized how fearful we had been about, quote, foreigners, based on information we had previously been given, but not on any experience of our own." They also shared that people in their community are feeling very motivated and anxious to help make a difference and to keep our country on track by working together in creative, positive, and responsible ways. To be against, destroy, or tear down slows the process, Mrs. Traubman shared. And Dr. Traubman added, change is binary. Listen to these words. This is brilliant. Change is binary. There is a no, but we must paint a picture of what life is going to look like in the future, which is another way of saying yes. So, as you can see, the personal inner work that we do on ourselves can and does have a profound impact on those around us. When we have shown up and taken responsibility in our own lives, then we have developed internal responsibility. We have developed internal happiness. We have developed faith and trust in the power within, around, and through us. When we have done all these things, the connection is obvious, one to another. And the work is easy. So that's the healing power of universal love. You see, it starts here and it goes out into the universe, doesn't it? Or we could talk about the law of circulation that says it comes from there and we take it in and return it. So it's that constant cycle of giving and receiving. Or we could say it's the creative process. Remember that one? The creative process, which is always moving, giving and receiving, individually and collectively. What we must learn in this spiritual essence that we are having a human experience is that we must get it here first in order to be successful with it anywhere else. The universe is always conspiring on our behalf. Intuitively, we're always guided to the greatest good for ourselves, which incidentally is always the greatest good for those around us. It's just that in order for us to respond to universal love, we must first love ourselves. Sometimes that means taking a self-inventory with the intention to make some positive changes. Sometimes that means forgiving ourselves for past mistakes and letting them go. Sometimes that takes forgiving others for their past mistakes or our perceptions of someone else's mistakes. You see, just as our own behaviors are the compilation of those around us and often need to be changed, so too can that be in others. And this is the formal end of this talk, so I'm going to turn the recorder off because I want to continue on as we talk locally.